You know what, Sam? That's very valid. I haven't gotten a notification that ads are over, but I'm just gonna assume that they are, because it's been 3 minutes ago. Expanded was supposed to be ready the first year of life, and it's now 4. Oh, there we go. Finally, we got one notification that the ad is over. Oh, my hands are so cold. Anyway, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever in the world you are. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Wow, I sounded like a freaking auction man doing that intro. That was not my intention whatsoever. Anyway, we're back to more Pokémon matches. I never mentioned, but like Phantasmal Flames has been legal for like a few weeks for this format. I don't think that I added anything for that, if I'm gonna be honest. But just know that that is legal. There are no ban updates for the ban list as of now. I am looking into cards that might be broken for Ascended Heroes, but it's looking like nothing once again will be added to the list. But I gotta have another comb over, because you never know when they print like mediocre price interaction Pokemon attacker that is somehow broken with this format because we have 10 prizes rather than 6. So I actually don't remember if I have Phantasmal Flames cards in this. Probably not, but we'll see. My guy has a whole 2 Phantasmal Flames cards in his deck. Damn, that's crazy. I guess I'm just a boomer. I guess I am just a boomer. Let me just up the brightness on my phone so I can actually read chat properly. Yeah. There we go. Anyway, I'll move you to waiting. I'm not seeing you in waiting to be moved, Sam. I'm not seeing you in any of the voice calls. Just so that you're aware. Now you are. Here you go. There you are. I'm gonna turn down music a tad. Oh, whoops. I heard a tudung. That means that Sam disconnected, I think. There we go. Tudung. There we go.
Alright, I can hear you now.
Finally, we can hear each other. Let's go. I think you're already very aware of what I'm playing, because this is what I spent most of last stream building. But are you ready to get started?
I have no memory of it.
To be fair, I also have no memory of what you have, if I'm gonna be honest. So that's maybe for the better. I don't think I looked at the entire deck list. To be fair, I don't think I remember, mostly because I had a very, very busy weekend. But that aside,
I'm ready.
I am also ready. Do you want heads or tails?
I would love to take tails.
There you go.
I'm gonna go first.
Alrighty then. I'll draw my opening 7. I don't think my deck is shuffled, because I drew 7 special energies.
That doesn't sound very good.
I mean, I'll take the mulligan. I'll take the mulligan, but like, look at this.
I mean, it doesn't say anywhere that you shuffled your deck, so I don't think you did.
No, let me just shuffle my deck and then try again.
I have not taken any mulligans.
Anyway, I do have a mulligan anyway.
Okay, 1 mulligan. No.
Let's see. This is 2 mulligans.
Also, that's the stream title.
I mean, are you surprised?
I don't think I stuck around long enough to watch.
This is 3. 3 mulligans.
Also egg? Interesting. Okay.
I have a starter.
Nice. So
It's only 3 mulligans. It's 3.
Oh, 3, okay.
But don't forget the prize first.
That's a good point.
There you go. God, I love it. This website is so nice for just playing one-on-one for like any format.
I take 3 mulligans.
Mm-hmm.
I will bench another Pokemon.
Then we can get started. All right, let's go. You wanted to go first, you said, right?
I did want to go first. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Draw for turn. That's quite the starting hand.
Holy shit.
Acrobite. View. Top 2. That's not the top 22.
Nice. Classic. That's what I do in real life as well. If I play Acrobike, I just accidentally grab the top 22 cards of my deck.
Ah. What do I want to do here?
That's a good question.
Because those are 2 quite good cards.
To nearest 1,000, how many credits do you think it would cost on TCG Live to get all the cards from our project? If I had to guess, because I know from Black and White era that that's like the least amount of cards, and that's already 13k. If I had to guess, for 5 generations, if we don't, I'm assuming we don't include the Mega Evolution block, right? We don't include the Mega Evolution block.
I'll get that card and put that into my discard.
My guess will be something around 150k. We are including Mega Evolutions. Okay, then 160k. There you go.
Cool.
That's my guess.
Bench Apom.
Oh shit. Wait, what did you discard from the Acrobike? Oh, Claydol, I see. Interesting.
I will catch basic dark energy for turn. I'll use Skyfield, and I'll put my commander into play.
Mm-hmm. Mr.
And
Hoopa
I will
EX.
toggle Fan Call.
Oh, interesting. You're going for Fan Call before the Apom thing.
And off of Fan Call, I will get Hoot Hoot, Noctowl, and I don't really think I have any other options, but
Should have used Apom before. 220,000 credits? If you had no existent expanded collection on live. That's crazy.
well,
Well, okay, so this includes cards like Nest Ball and Research that are in standard right now but have been first printed in expanded. But that shouldn't matter that much because those are like commons.
And I'll get
Ditto Prism Saw.
and I'll bench Ditto and Hoot Hoot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll pass.
Alright, I'll draw a card for turn. I think let's first start by bumping the Skyfield.
Oh no. Anyways. And then I can bump Ditto. Awesome.
Okay. I'll use Pokemon Research Lab. I mean, I can't toggle that unfortunately, but... Are you kidding me? Amistar V is priced? Fuck me, bro. I'm so happy I opened Research Lab.
Research Lab?
Yeah, but the whole plan is that, like, you know, the Ditto sequence that you did for, like, Alakazam, the plan was to do that for Amistar V. But Amistar V is priced. God fucking damn it.
Off the Research Lab. That stinks.
Okay, what do I want after Research Lab then? I do have a lot of Pokemon that can evolve from unidentified. What does this deck do again? I forgot what this deck does.
Well, don't we all?
It says it when it evolves from unidentified fossil, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I can't do any of these. These evolve from mysterious. Yeah. Can do that one. That's also not unidentified fossil. Sorry, it's taking a little bit. Definitely this one.
How much HP does that Kabuto have? 90?
And this one. This Kabuto has 90 HP, yeah.
Dang, that's a lot.
I mean, technically it's a stage 1, so...
I guess
The average cost of a card on average in our project is 685. That's kind of crazy still, not gonna lie.
Draw for turn.
Hold on, I didn't say pass.
You used Fossil Research Lab. Your turn is over.
Oh, right. You're so right. I'm so... sorry, I keep forgetting that Research Lab ends my turn. It's fine. It's whatever. It does not matter.
I'll get rid of that, by the way.
The Research Lab? Okay, yeah, fair.
Yeah. None of that. None of that. Okay. I'll play Noctowl to search my deck. I'll get Evolution Incense. And Night Stretcher. Use Night Stretcher, get Claydol. Use Evolution Incense, get...
Let me guess, Darkrai V-Star?
No.
Oh, I know what this list is. Fuck, it's the bench sniping with the Ember Palm. Oh no. Dude, what I'm misplaying so hard. I definitely want a rematch after this one.
Get that Ember Palm out.
Oh my fucking god.
And then I'll use the Claydol's ability, Cosmic Power.
He doesn't have an ability.
2 cards from the bottom, from my hand to the bottom of my
You did have to show me which cards you put on the bottom.
Oh. Okay, I don't care. I get to draw 3.
But also, Claydol doesn't have an ability.
I'll use his Poke Power.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll attach Floatstone for turn. I'll attach Ignition Energy for turn.
Wait, but you drew until you had 5 cards in hand. You get to draw an extra one.
Yeah. Oh, I don't remember the card. Oh, how nice. Oh,
it draws until 6.
Okay.
In case you're wondering. I guess you can't use...
card, discard a Dark Energy and draw 2 cards.
I guess you can't use Invite Evil now, so that's a nice thing. You play Mamoswine for Archeops on TCG Live to accelerate step fighting energy from the deck. Beat Arcan into play with Research Lab. Many times as my opponent used Research Lab to get nothing and enter turn. People need to read cards.
Yeah. Play Supporter for turn.
What does this card do again? Searches for Dark Energy and a Pokemon?
For an Energy and a Dark Pokemon.
Oh, an Energy and a Dark Pokemon. That's what it is. Okay. I thought a Dark Energy and a Pokemon, but I was close. I was close.
You know, I should have checked my prizes before I played.
No Darkrai V-Star?
No Darkrai V-Star.
Megamind meme.
I'll get Darkrai EX, and my energy will be Darkness Energy. Well, I'll use my Floatstone to retreat Liepard to the bench. That was the wrong.
I was about to say, I'm assuming that's a wrong promotion.
I was trying to toggle the marker since I had forgotten to.
That's fine.
And I'll use Dual Tail to discard 2 energy from this Pokemon. And then I'll knock out your Ditto and put 60 damage on your Archon.
Alright. I'll push Kabuto.
Yo, I low-key fumbled that turn so bad, by the way.
Don't forget to draw a prize before I start my turn.
I definitely got the wrong energy. But you know, live and learn, right?
I guess so. Evolve into Archeops.
Dang, he just has that in his hand. Okay.
Dowsing Machine.
Raw. It's just raw, right?
Yeah. I'll discard Skyfield and ARE. And I will recover Research Lab. Put Research Lab in play. I'll play Ace Trainer.
How much HP does Archeops have?
150. Total.
Deck, draw 3.
Shuffle in deck and draw 6. Well, it doesn't have 150 left. It has 150 total. So you know.
It wasn't mattered.
I'll use Tackle.
But if I thought it had like 130 or something, and then I could have done stuff with it.
And grab these 2 cards from my deck.
Pricing was not good this game.
I'll use Primal Turbo. Wait, where the fuck are my energies? Holy shit, what the fuck is my pricing? Anyway, I'll just grab the counter energy to attach to Kabuto.
What is it?
And I'll use Ramming Shell to do 80 damage to... wait, do I want to use Ramming Shell? Hold on. No, I'm gonna use... yeah, I'll use Ramming Shell for 80 damage.
Nice.
And reducing the damage Kabuto takes by 20.
Very nice, very nice.
You're not behind on prizes? I am behind on prizes. My opponent has 9 and I have 10.
Draw for turn. Well, it would have been nice last turn, but you know, didn't need it anyway.
Don't worry, you're fine. I know it looks full, the prizes we have, but in reality, it's not.
Well, basically my entire deck.
Yeah, valid.
I don't know what I'm gonna do. You have to bump that Skyfield so fast.
Yes. I mean, you wanted to go first. You played Skyfield turn 1 going first.
Well, yeah, I needed to get basics down, and that was before I realized they were all prized. I would have held it if I realized all of them were in the prize cards.
Yeah, I also lost my own Skyfields, if that helps.
Well, I want the Skyfield in place, so I can
Yeah.
play my own
I know.
I'll Battle Compressor.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, who don't I need anymore?
I should put that card in more lists. It's really powerful. Even in a 1-of format. That's valid. No phone, I don't want to update my software. Shut the fuck up.
Don't need him either. I kind of want that. Yeah, discard one more card. I think it'll be that. I will use Cosmic Power.
Mm-hmm.
Draw 5. That's pretty good. I'll play Gladion.
It's always like Play-Doh is pretty good. Like that Claydol is insane.
So there's 5 cards I won out of the prizes, and I only have prize interaction for 1. So who do I get? I think I really just get that and put Gladion into the prize cards. I'll play Area 0 Underdepths for my hand.
No! Sorry. I need to center myself. Man. Rip my research lab. I should have just used my research lab last turn, man.
Mega Absol EX.
Oh my god, not the fucking Mega Absol.
I'll attach return. Kind of regretting binning that Turbo Energize already. I'll trade away Galarian Moltres. Draw 2. That was a mistake.
Oh, it's Baby Moltres.
And I'll pass.
I'll draw for turn. Play Level Ball. Check. I don't think these are... Actually, this is a 90 HP Pokemon.
Feel free to bump my stadium now. Thanks.
I'll grab Kabutops.
What does this Kabutops do?
You'll see soon
Does
enough.
he item lock Kabutops?
Play Arven. To grab... these 2 cards.
It is.
Suin Heavy Ball and Fluffy Berry.
Oh, it's that one.
Play Suin Heavy Ball. Put it in there. And grab Amistar V.
Amistar V.
So many good cards in fucking prizes. Holy shit. I'll bench Amistar V.
Oh, feel free to kill that Ambipom.
That's Fluffy Berry.
Oh no, don't.
That's Twin Energy. Evolve into Kabutops, which does read, as long as Kabutops is active, neither player can play basic Pokemon or evolution cards from his or her hand to evolve bench Pokemon.
Nice.
But that doesn't matter right now, because I'm going to retreat into Amistar.
Dang it.
And I am going to use Primal Guidance to search my deck for up to 2 Pokemon that evolve from an item card that has Fossil in its name, and put them onto my bench, and then I'll shuffle my deck. So I will do that.
No Primal Turbo that turn. Interesting.
Yeah, I had the energy in hand, and honestly, what's really funny, there's only 2 special energies in my deck left.
Winning is not winning, I guess.
And I will put these 2, I think. I think these 2.
Yeah, that's the wrong thing.
What does this say? Not enough. I'll bench these 2 and shuffle my deck.
Draw, return.
So
So
Primal Lock EX says that you can't play any 2 cards anymore, and that any 2 cards in play are removed. So please discard the float stone before starting to.
That. I was getting
there. Okay, cool. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Alrighty. I draw for turn. What is the sequence here? I'll Cosmic Power. Put 2 cards from my hand onto the bottom of my deck. And then draw 3. And then I'll use trade. Discard card. Draw 2. Ooh, shit. I don't actually have a switch anymore, which is unhelpful.
I'd love to hear that.
I'll use Earthen Vessel.
Yeah.
Discard Dark Claw.
Dark Claw, let's go! The muscle band for dark types.
I don't really have much use for tools at the moment. I'll attach Return to Ampapum. Actually, no. Pardon. I'll attach Return Dark to Absol. And then I'll play N.
Ah, you motherfucker.
And I'm gonna draw 9 cards.
And I'll draw 10.
I'll play. Darn, man. So just need the switch. And I had the switch, but somebody discarded all my shit.
Somebody's discarded your shit? I didn't discard anything.
I'll use Max Elixir.
Oh, well, the floatstone, I guess.
Yeah, floatstone that I kind of wanted.
Fair. I mean, you end away my Plumeria. You end away my Plumeria that I wanted to use on the fucking Absol, so. Oh, man.
I will attach a basic energy from that. Well, I don't have much I can do anymore. Guess I'll bench Sneasel.
Sneasel the goat!
And bench Fez. Where the frick did Sneasel go? And then I'll flash Trumpet.
One's a Noxel.
Can't do it to anyone else. And then I'll pass my turn.
I'll draw for turn. Attach Force Seal Stone to Amstar.
And there's Plumeria. Woo!
Evolve into Bastiodon.
Bastiodon, is that bench barrier?
It is. I'll use my V-Star power to search my deck for cards. And put it in my hands. I'll play Plumeria.
What?
Discarding Steven's Resolve and Cymer Ball.
Is that 2 energy?
I discard 1 energy from one of your Pokemon. But I get to choose from what Pokemon, so I want 1 energy gone from the Mega Absol.
Shocked. Shocked, I tell you.
I know, right?
I never could have seen that one coming.
I'll play Pelpat. Shuffle back ARE and Plumeria into my deck.
You little bitch.
If I do this,
already?
if I so I have Path to the Peak in my hand, and if I do that, I disable my own Aerodactyl as well. But I think that's still worth it. So there you go.
Oh, nice.
But you can play tools again.
All right. So
But you do have to discard
Noctowl.
a bench Pokemon.
Goodbye, Hoopa. There you go.
Do you want to return Hoopa to the Commander Zone?
I do not.
Okay. There's still 6 Pokemon on your bench, so one more.
I'm deciding whether
Okay.
discard.
Gotcha. I mean, do you think I'm taking KOs with this list?
Knowing you with control, but yeah, probably. It was either Fez or Darkrai.
Okay. I'll play Dive Ball.
Which is gonna pull Omastar VMAX.
Amistar VMAX, could you imagine?
That card exists now.
I know that card exists. I looked at it. No. Having a tough time to decide.
There's no Omastar VMAX? What is this guy talking about?
I'll grab this Omastar. And I will use... Sorry, I'll show you again this Amistar.
Okay, retreat.
And then I'll use Primal Guidance.
Oh boy.
To put this Pokemon on my bench. Ending my turn.
Oh, drop turn.
I love this Omanyte.
If I whiff Energy Fear, I think I'm gonna actually wanna cry. Well, I'll attach Muscle Band to Absol. And then I'll clear these markers real quick. And then I can't believe I let you convince me to take all the switches out of my deck.
Wait.
That is not what I meant to do.
I was about to say, like, wait, why are you moving like that?
Toggle the marker. And I'll...
Toggle the what? What did you call it?
Toggle the marker.
Oh, toggle the marker. I thought you said something along the lines of toggle the marcher, and I was like, wait, what did you call Claydol?
Alright. And I'll send some stuff to the bottom of this here deck. And I'll draw 3 cards. And use your trade.
Claydol is so good.
Discard a card and draw 2.
Toxtricity.
I'll use Professor's Letter. Energy.
You did not whiff the energy. Unfortunate.
I'll attach energy for turn. Actually, wait, pause. I'll hold that energy for just a second here.
That's okay.
Play Trainer's Mail. That's why we hold the energy, boys. That's why we hold the energy.
What card did you get from Trainer's Mail?
I'll play Energy Switch.
Is that the card you got? That's crazy.
Yes. I'll move energy from Liepard Ambipom. I'll attach for turn.
Oh my god. Fuck me, man.
Pushing Mega Absol.
I'm gonna vomit!
Do I boss or do I not boss? That is the question. business decisions.
I mean, what do you want to KO?
Well, I could kill Aerodactyl, or I could kill Archeop, or I could kill Omastar, or I could kill Kabuto. There's a lot of options. Believe it or not.
I mean, you can kill Archeops with the first attack even.
I know. That's why I was saying I could hold boss and kill Archeops.
No, okay, so it doesn't work like that because the active has to have 6.
Oh, it is. Is it active?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then there's zero reason to use the first attack.
Well, I was hoping I would bait you into doing it.
Omastar is pretty useless right now, so I think, and you apparently have no energy. So I'm gonna boss that Aerodactyl.
Right.
And then I'm going to use Claw of Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see that hand. I think we can get rid of Gladion.
God, it.
And I'll take my 2 prizes.
Push Kabutops. And I'll draw for turn. That is a top deck and a half. I'll play ARE. Well, there's only 2 items there, so you can discard those.
Darn it.
You did get Darkrai V-Star from prizes, though.
Oh, the prizes I drew were Weavile and Darkrai, which was pretty funny. That's what I wanted off the prize card.
Which means I think I'll hold. So that you can't evolve those bench Pokemon. Unless you boss something else.
Well, good thing I have a whole lot of draw power, right?
I'll pass.
He's gonna pass. And I'll draw for turn. Ooh, that's good. I think I want to hold that. So I'll use my cosmic power. I forgot to untoggle my markers. That to the bottom of the deck. And that to the bottom of the deck. And I'll draw 2. Okay. Now trade. Judge. 2.
Judge!
There we go. That's what we're looking for. I'll play Prime Catcher.
Alright, that's unfortunate.
Pull up Omastar.
Omastar V or Ammonite?
Omastar V. And I'll push. I don't really care. Push Liepard. I'll evolve into Weavile GX and Darkrai V-Star. Use Janine's Secret Art. Get some energy. And attach it to you and you. She's poisoned, but I don't really. Liepard's poisoned. I don't really care though.
Liepard's not poisoned. It's only poisoned if you attach to Liepard.
Oh, never mind. Well, I'll transfer an energy using Weavile, and I will retreat.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you could have also free retreated with Okay, please move that to discard. Yeah, thank you. You could have also free retreated with the
getting
Sneasel, but that's fair.
Push him. I still have an attached return. So I'll do that. Actually, I couldn't because Path to the Peak is in play. But I'll do the thing you said.
Yeah, pushing Sneasel, yeah.
And pushing Sneasel and then evolving retreat. Same difference, really.
Yeah.
Nothing changed. Other than life.
Well, it means that that dark energy in discard is actually in your hand.
Yeah. And it would be on live part, not Weave.
Actually, no, in your deck, actually. Because it was the energy. Because it was the energy that you put in play with Janine's that you moved to the live part. So, no, what? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, anyways. Then I'll Claw of Darkness for the knockout. And I get to remove things from your hand. Because this card's fair and balanced. We can get rid of the jet energy.
Right.
And I'll take 2 prize cards.
Push Kabutops and draw. It would be nice if I could, like, draw good cards, but I guess it's not an option.
Untoggle some markers.
I will retreat into Archeops, evolve my Ammonite into Amistar. Use Archeops. I don't think this has legal targets. No, it doesn't. Cool.
Alright. Well, does he have the ball? Question.
Fetch double colorless here, and I will pass my turn.
Passes. Okay. I'll draw for my turn. God, Claydol is so broken, by the way.
Claydol is so goddamn good.
That can go to the bottom of the deck. That can go to the bottom deck. I can draw 3 cards. Play Trekking Shoes. Top 1. I'm going to put that into my hand. I will bump your Path to the Peak.
Okay.
I don't know why, I just did. Because I felt like it. And I will trade. I don't think I'm going to need Pow Hand Extension anytime soon. Nice. I'll Dark Patch. To Liepard, because why not? You know, I'll Dark Patch to Darkrai V-Star. That's optimal. I'll also Energy Transfer to Darkrai V-Star.
Okay. Why? Why did you do that?
Because if you turn off my abilities, then I have an attacker with Dark Pulse.
I mean, Dark Pulse counts all energy in play you have, not just Darkrai's.
Oh, it does? Oh, yeah, it does. Never mind. I'm going to move it to...
I mean, you don't have to never mind, because you can move it as often as you want, officially.
Oh, yeah, I guess I'll move it to Claydol. That's awesome. And I have attack retreat from anything if you turn off abilities. What do I want to do with this? Not really anything, I don't think. If Fitting is winning, I'll play Hilda.
You say Fitting is winning, but my win con is deck out.
Well, I think I'll have plenty of cards. Since I'm only getting 1 card. I get Darkness Energy.
Oh shit, Darkness Energy? That's crazy.
And I'll attach Darkness Energy turn. This basic.
Wait, didn't you already attach return? Oh no, the Dark Patch shenanigans were with the Dark Patch. That's right.
Yeah. I'll attach darkness energy for turn onto Darkrai E-Star. Now use Claw of Darkness. Knock out your Archeon. And see your hand. Hold on. Alright, I'll use Claw of Darkness. And you can get rid of, I don't really care, Archen.
Alright. Don't forget to take your prize.
I'll take a prize card! Yippee!
I'll draw. Turn. I'll use Artisan.
I knew I shouldn't have given you that, but I kind of wanted to not deal with ability block anymore.
And I'll bench Ditto. So why not?
Wow! That's crazy.
And then I'll use Dual Cut to do 50 damage to your Absol.
Nice. 50 damage. Big ups right there. Draw for turn.
Dude, a flip 2 coins attack on a stage 2 Pokemon is nuts. Like, in not the good way.
It's an e-reader card. Are you really surprised? He's there for the ability.
I mean, even Charizard from base set had a better attack.
That's fair, but it's there for the ability, and it's supposed to just kill basics, and basics didn't have very much.
It doesn't have an ability!
Well, it's got a Pokebody. It's the same damn thing.
No, it's not.
Pipe down. I don't know. Use Cosmic Power. Put some Pokemon on the bottom of my deck.
Alright, I'm gonna scoop.
Oh, okay.
We are gonna run this again.
Sore loser. No, I'm kidding.
Honestly, I couldn't do anything starting from 3 turns ago, so be happy that I still played the game for this long.
Oh wait, I threw my hand. Hold on. You wanna go first or second?
I would love to go second.
Okay, I'll go first again. Nice. I can work with that.
I can't work with this.
No, you cannot.
Hello? Right. Yeah, okay.
Alright. Mulligan number 1.
Number 2?
Number 2. This looks just like the Alakazam deck.
Number 3?
Number 3. Ew. Yeah, but the problem is the Alakazam deck was a joke, and this is apparently serious.
Actually, hold on. I want this one here. Wait, I evolved it.
Nice, evolve.
Yeah. Okay, let me take my prize. There we go. You're allowed to take 3 mulligans if you want.
Yep, I will take my 3 mulligans. 1, 2, 3.
And you can start.
And I will have purple. Draw for turn. And I'll play an Esper.
I'm gonna miss Nestball in standard. How the heck am I gonna get my big basics now?
Big basics are cooked. They're all cooked. All the good ones are cooked anyway.
Well, like Mega Absol Box wasn't necessarily cooked, but like now that we lose Nestball, it kind of is still.
Yeah, I don't really care about that deck.
I do.
Well, I'll get Fan Rotom and I'll go Fan Call. Everyone's favorite.
Not really, but sure.
Not really, he says. Not really. All your guys have way too much HP for me to be doing Apom stuff. Wait, where's Ditto? No. No!
Got him. Go grab Apom, bitch.
No,
Oh.
I found Ditto. He was just in there. Ditto. Hoopa into play. You're just a hater, you know that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he knows.
I'm well aware.
Alright, what do I do here? I don't even know. I'll just attach return to Purloin. I'll pass.
Drop turn.
This Iona would be diabolical. That'd be quite sad.
Use transformative starts. You have got to be kidding me. There is simply no way. Why is he got Amistar V is a fraud. Amistar V is a fucking fraud.
Well, I guess I should have gone for Apom then.
Holy shit, bro.
No.
Fuck it, it's Erica's invitation.
Oh, that's annoying actually. What? No. I didn't want him to be in play.
Yeah, get me that Galarian Moltres.
Okay, that doesn't matter. I don't care about that.
Actually?
Wait, no, don't, no.
Yeah, but it has to go to active. It has to go to active, you know?
It moves to active?
It moves to active.
What?
Yeah.
That's so dumb.
It's a supporter. It's a supporter. It's like worse Pokebuff, but it moves to active.
Huh. That's kind of annoying.
Yeah, that was the plan. And then I'll pass my turn.
Okay.
God, this is so fucked, bro. Amistar V is a fucking fraud. What are the odds of that? That's literally 1 in 100 that I prize it 2 games in a row. One, literally 1 in 100 that I prize it 2 games in a row. Dude, I want to show off the cool deck and how consistent it is, but I guess it's not consistent. I want to cry, man.
Wait, no. Fly apart. Why are you in the? There you are. I'm just blind this game, I guess. Get Liepard. I'll use trade. Discard.
Bro's playing trade in the trading card game? That's crazy.
What? Discard Darkrai. Yeah.
That makes sense.
I know.
Still think I should have probably. Still think I probably should have Erica's that one instead of the Moltres, but I guess this only accelerates 1 and the Moltres accelerates 2, so.
Yeah, but the Moltres wasn't discard fodder for trade. Well, actually, it kind of was, but this is better discard fodder.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I need to go get things. I'll use Noctowl. Go get some cards.
Wait. Oh yeah, you do have Jera. Yeah.
Get him. And who do I want this turn?
Who?
Basics.
Who?
Yes.
Sorry, that was a very bad pun. It was an owl impression because you're playing Noctowl.
Oh. Absolute cinema.
Man.
Area 0. Play him. And attack. Okay, so
Judge. Slow play.
Well, all my freaking junk is in the prize right And I don't even have quick ball in this deck. Who built this thing? What are
You!
we doing? Who built this trash?
You did, my guy.
Suboptimal. That's what this is.
Isn't Quick Ball like one of the first 10 cards that goes in every deck for this
Yeah,
format?
I know. That's why I'm confused. It should be in here, but I just checked the deck list and it's not. I'll fix that later.
Anyway, you got your 2 cards from Jewel Seeker.
I'll play Area 0 under Chance. Get Foul Toy. Use Ultra Ball to discard that. And I don't think I'll need him anytime soon.
Dude, I am so angry at Amistar V. It's not funny.
And then I'll get Mega Absol.
Mega Absol?
My hand. Now put him onto the bench.
Hey, yo, bro's got a Mega Absol.
And I'll play Guzman.
Okay, cool.
Liepard.
Wait, Lipards? Okay, sure.
I'll attach TM Turbo Energize.
Oh, I see. I thought you were gonna go for a fan rodent play.
That doesn't get me anything, so why would I do that?
It gets you a prize card.
That is fair. I'll play Professor's later.
That's more or less what I was thinking you would do.
I decided that you weren't doing too much for a couple turns.
That's fair.
Now I'll use TM Turbo Energize.
But it would end my suffering. It would end my suffering a lot faster.
And those will both get attached to Mega Absol. And here Energize goes to the discard.
I'll draw for turn.
I'll pass.
Bounce a bump. I top deck the bump. That's crazy.
What the hell?
I top deck the bump.
Down here. Anyways, your turn. Keep going. Let's see it.
I'll use Brooklet Hill. Bench Ditto.
Oh, this reminds me of that freaking Alakazam deck. It's just ditto, 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 ditto. Oh, that deck was awesome.
And I'll pass my turn.
I'll draw for turn.
See, Brooklet Hill is another out to Amistar V, but
Ow.
I guess we're never finding him.
2. I'll attach Muscle Band. I'll attach Basic Fighting Energy.
But these are different Dittos, right? The 2 Squirtles?
Yes, they are different.
Yeah, they are. Okay.
They have a different attack. And I'll retreat into Mega Absol. Use Glass Trumpet to attach energy to Ditto. And Dialogue Claw Dart. Heal your hand, please. You can discard the Lodestone, please.
Right. Push Ditto and draw. My top decks are like not terrible, I guess. I'll play Scott.
God. Oh, hell no. God,
Gets Research Lab. And INO. And Irida into my hand.
Judge would be so funny right here.
Oh, whoops. I'll bump my own stadium. And I will use Pokemon Research Lab.
I'm not gonna play. Oh wait, you can't play supporter. Never mind. I'm stupid.
Yeah, Scott was my supporter, my guy.
Yeah, I just realized that. Gosh.
The bench Arcan.
Well, he got something. That's something.
And also to bench Hold on, sure.
You should have waited to make this deck until the new Tyrantrum came out.
Maybe. Anyway, that my turn ends by doing this.
I'll draw for turn. A Hisuian and a Heavy Ball. What is in the prize cards?
Did you get this from prizes, the heavy ball, or was it a top deck?
That's top deck, the Heavy Ball.
Wait, what did you get from the heavy ball?
Far Cry.
Okay.
I'll play Karina.
Yo, it's Irida's sister.
Unfortunately, Karina was the only real option I have. Actually, wait. Hold on. I'll hold Karina for a second. Wait, did I trade already?
No.
I'll trade. Because technically I have a chance. Okay, that's useless. Then I'll play Karina. That guy. That fella.
Mm-hmm.
And that fella.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll evolve. Use cosmic power.
The power of the cosmos.
Draw 2. I'll attach for turn. And then I don't know. Is how Claw of Darkness. And I think we can get rid of. I know.
Unfortunate. I'll push Ditto and draw.
I can take a prize card. Heck yeah.
Play Irida.
Getting two supporters is pretty good.
Wait, why do I have Buddy Buddy Poffin in this deck?
Yeah, to get Dittos, obviously.
I guess so.
You need those Dittos, right? I assume Dittos are only basic.
Yeah, and Amistar V is.
Well, then Buddy Buddy Pop is completely useless because either you start Amistar V or you start Ditto.
Yeah. That is indeed a useless card in my deck.
Oh, good. That makes up for me not having Quick Ball for some fucking reason.
Crap here, man. I'll grab Fossil Egg. And the water Pokemon I'll be grabbing is...
What on earth is that card? Oh, it's Fossil Egg. Never mind.
Caracosta.
Caracosta? What is Caracosta?
Here you go.
I can't read that. It needs to be somewhere where I can click on it.
I'll put it on bench then for a sec.
Oh, okay. It's just another tool denial. Man really does not like them tool cards.
Play Fossil Egg. Of course I flip tails. Awesome.
Nice.
I want to cry. And then I'll use Pokemon Research Lab.
What happened to that cessation crystal you had? I'm surprised you haven't played it.
Oh, wait! Have I not? You're right, I'm so sorry.
Why is he not playing?
I think that's the only evolution from an unidentified fossil that I have in deck. Yeah, it is. So that ends my turn.
Now draw for turn. Now use Luxury Ball.
Mm-hmm.
Evolve into Weavile.
Dude, my brain was like, wait, why did he grab Weavile? He has no Sneasel in play. And then a second later you put it on as Ditto, and I was like, oh yeah. That's right. My prices are once again pretty fucked. But it is what it is.
Is Archen threatening? Not really. I don't think I'm scared of much here. I'll save that. Now Claw of Darkness for the knockout. I think we can lose the Sydney there.
Right, put shield on, draw. Oh, I guess I top deck the Bastiodon and I pass.
Nice.
Awesome. There's plenty of supporters in this deck, by the way.
Away the Fossil Research Lab.
And maybe also your muscle band?
Why would I do that?
Because you can.
I can. That is accurate. I could. I definitely could. Now Claw of Darkness again. And I don't know, we can lose Tortuga. Take another prize.
Push Arcan and draw. That is something. Play Strange Cave and use Strange Cave to bench Kabuto. And pass.
Oh, nice. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, Strange Cave is a pretty solid card, isn't it? Sadly, it only works for the Gen 1 and Gen 3 fossils, but it's pretty cool. It even works for Aerodactyl EX. Like, that's so cool.
Battle Compressor. Draw card.
The fact that it works for Aerodactyl EX specifically as well is also really cool.
I wish I could get rid of that. I guess I could, but that would be kind of lame since you're struggling quite a bit.
No, do it. Do it.
Good Rod. I'll flip heads. It didn't matter anyway.
What are you going to put on top of your deck?
Darkrai V-Star. Go to the top of my deck. I'll play Bella and Bryson Man.
Below and Bryson Man, okay.
Discarding these 3 cards.
So I discard the top 3.
Discarding Darkrai, Crobat, and Ignition Energy.
I discard Twins, Trainer's Mail, and Pow Hand Extension, and then you also gotta discard down to bench size.
Yeah, I meant to move this energy off of Moltres first.
That's fine, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. I figured that was the case.
And I'll discard Moltres and Hoopa.
Yeah. Okay.
Bench Darkrai V.
I'm surprised you run below and Bryson Man.
My bench space gets real tight.
That's fair.
I had, 2 more basics that I wanted to put down right there.
You could also play Giant Stump for that.
I could have, but I didn't want. I was already had 4 stadiums, and I was like, whatever.
Sure.
And I'll use Claw of Dark.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't stomp your own stadium twice, and I'll get rid of. I don't care, pick one.
Okay, I'll discard Caracosta.
Actually, wait, no, you have Kabuto in play. Never mind. Get rid of that.
Shit, he noticed. Fuck.
Wait a minute. I thought I
Push
got rid of
Kabuto. Draw. Oh shit, I Tom deck Kabutops. Not that it matters. I'll pass.
I need to take a prize card.
Yeah, go ahead and take your prize card, man.
Yay. Prize
Now
card.
you can't evolve your bench Pokemon. Let's go. You can't play Darkrai V-Star. Slay.
Nice. I'll draw for turn.
You can't play his Darkrai V-Star. Let's go.
I'll shuffle this Darkrai V-Star into the deck.
Wait, but didn't you use Good Rod to put the Darkrai V-Star on top of your deck? Oh, you discarded it with the Loba. That's right.
I'll only get Darkrai. I don't feel like getting anyone else.
Okay.
I'll catch Dark Energy. I'll use Cosmic Power. Putting just 1 card from my hand to the bottom of my deck, drawing 5.
One more. One more.
Hold on.
One more.
This guy's supposed to be on the bottom of my deck. I need to draw 2. I actually sent 1 card to the top.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
And then I'll toggle trade. Can't believe I drew that card. God dang it.
What cards? Doxel?
Well, I've drawn all of my Pokemon recovery right after I put Darkrai V-Star into my deck. I drew Night Stretcher and Rescue Stretcher.
Let's go.
That was very helpful.
Slay.
Then I will retreat Liepard into... That is onto the table, not my active. Ugh.
What the fuck happened there?
Push this fella. After retreating, now I'll use a Claw of Darkness. What do you have up there? That's a whole lot of nothing. I'm sorry to tell you. Get rid of Pat's Peak, please.
Okay. Draw for turn. Play Peonia.
He's gonna get Omastar. Everyone watch out.
Didn't really get Omastar, unfortunately.
That's unfortunate.
I'll put this guy back. And this guy.
I love this Darkrai card so
And
much.
this
It's
guy.
so awesome.
Play Pokemon Retriever.
Pokemon Retriever. Oh heck
Get this Ditto into my hands.
no. Oh nice, Ditto.
Play the
Can you
Ditto.
imagine? He is.
Level ball. I'm not dead yet.
Is there another Ditto?
No. Unfortunately not. Level ball for this fella.
Omanyte.
I'll use Strange Cave to put the Omanyte in play. That's actually the wrong Omanyte, but that's fine. It's fine for now. And I will pass my turn.
How much health does Omanyte have?
The Omanyte on the bench has
60.
Yeah.
Well, that's unfortunate. If he had 50, I could have killed him.
Wait, what?
Night Spear plus Zigzagoon Halucha.
Ah. But you don't have bench space for that.
Well, I have bench options. I have bench extending options, believe it or not.
Hmm.
Draw for turn. I'll use that feller.
Man.
Get rid of.
Play doll is so fucking good, bro.
Deck. Draw 2. Trekking shoes. You top 1. I do want that. I'll play Max Elixir. Top 6. How many? I guess only 1 energy, right?
Correct.
I'll attach an energy. I'll use trade. 2.
Nice battle VIP pass.
And write the card. You have anything good in your hand?
I mean, you would know, right?
Yeah.
Mostly. You don't know the cards that Peony adds, but
Okay, Rockets admin. Let's have some fun. I'll draw 4.
oh, whoops. There we go.
I'll bump your stadium.
No! Not Strange Cave.
And whoa. Stop doing things I don't want you to. I don't want to discard my play doll. And I will Claw of Darkness. Oh wow, that is quite a lot of cards you have there, buddy.
Yeah. You admin me.
Ugh. Well, I'm not really scared. You can get rid of your ace back.
I push Ditto, draw.
Take prize. Woo! Prize card. Yay!
Evolution Incense.
Evo Incense. Oh, he's gonna retreat lock me.
Or Amistar.
Now he's gonna item lock me. Oh no. I'm terrified.
Evolve.
I'm very scared. Do I have Gust left in the deck? I think I do. I do. I have Boss.
Play Arven. Or Hisuian Heavy Ball.
Argon for Hisuian Heavy Ball.
And Memory Capsule.
Memory Capsule.
Play Heavy Ball. Grab myself my fucking Amistar.
Oh
Bench
wow,
the-
memory caps with that Omanite's pretty. It's actually a pretty good package. With the retreat locking one.
Counter energy. Memory capsule. If only I actually pushed Ammonite.
That wouldn't have done anything.
I could have dragged off the Claydol to active.
I have free retreat on all my Pokemon.
You don't? Not on Claydol. Well, okay, so... Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah. I can Shadow Connection and then retreat using Dark Cloak.
Use Artisan. And fail. Pass.
He's gonna pass. I'll draw for turn.
Man, I really wanted to show how good this deck was, but... Do you want to play a game tree? Do you want to play a game tree?
Sure, I'll play Judge.
You want to play a game tree?
I'll play. He's gonna scoop. Nice. Oh, let me fix my deck really fast.
Yeah, go for it. I just want like a normal game where I actually don't price Amistar V. That'd be awesome.
We're making some adjustments. To this here deck. And one more card. I knew I wanted something. What was it? Brain fart.
Quick ball.
That was one of the cards, but I cut multiple. Refining the deck here.
Switch.
Yeah. I wanted to switch cards. That's what I was thinking of.
Specifically for this matchup, you wanted switch cards.
No, I've been missing like a hard switch. And then I wanted more Gust.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was trying to do too much with my deck build. So we're switching it up a little bit.
Can I go second again?
I'm pretty sure it's my turn to pick, right? Because I won the coin flip the first time.
Well, it's not whose turn it is to pick. It's always the person who loses the previous game gets to choose the next one. Yeah.
Or you can go second again. I don't care.
Yay! Oh, I forgot to shuffle my deck again. Hold on.
Shuffle.
Reveal.
That's pretty dang good. I'm not gonna lie.
Reveal my hand. This is Mulligan 1.
One mulligan. Tragic.
Only one Mulligan. Oh, whoops. I priced 11 cards. There you go.
Alright. You ready?
I'm ready. Why do I always open this fucking Ditto? It's so fucking funny. Oh shit. I'm also gonna get Dittoed. Man.
And Riddle is just so good. It's not fair. Card is not fair.
I mean, if you can find it turn 1, it's really good, yeah.
Well, I have found it every single time so far.
Oh yeah, I wanted to cut Puffin from this list. That's right. That's okay.
And that's how I basically started with it.
I'm getting Vietnam flashbacks.
That is quite the prizing lineup, by the way.
Ditto Price, let's go! Ditto Prism Star Price.
I have only those 2 colorless Pokemon.
Damn! Not even the Apom.
Koopa goes into play. And, I don't know, I'll attach for turn. To you. I'll pass.
I'll draw for turn. Use Ditto's Duplicate to switch it with a Ditto in my deck.
No Ditto Prism Star kind of hurts, by the way. No bueno.
Use Transformative Start to discard Ditto and put
Omastar V?
Omastar V, baby.
Does he have the energy though? That's the second question.
That's a really good question, actually. I'm gonna Rocket Admin.
No! No! Never mind, I don't care.
Attach for turn. Path to the peak.
Oh, you jackass.
Fossil Egg. Flip. Of course, I flip tails. And I'll use Primal Guidance. To bench. To bench Kabuto. And this Tortuga. And that's my turn.
What does that Kabuto do?
That's a good question. Why don't you go ahead and read it?
I'm reading it. It just duplicates his Kabutos. That's not terrible. Draw for turn. Okay. Do I set up or do I get aggressive? That is the question. Play Arvin.
Mm-hmm.
Floatstone. That. And then I need to. Okay, yeah, I'm there. For Floatstone.
And letter.
Professor's letter. Alright. Catch Floatstone. I'll evolve into Noctowl that I just got raw. Because I'm like that.
That's crazy. I was debating to playing Iono or or admin.
Well, you kind of get pretty hard punished for that. I'll get Dark Patch and Quick Ball. I'll play Quick Ball, discarding a Dark Energy. And I'll go get a Pokemon. Basic Pokemon. And I'll be Claydol. Well, not Claydol, Baltoy.
Bench is a quick ball.
Dark Patch. Dark Energy. Patch Dark Energy for turn. I'll bench Darkrai V.
Holy shit!
And I'll Retreat into Mega Absol EX.
This is crazy.
For 200 damage, knocking you out. And we can get rid of that art. None of that.
Push Kabuto, draw. Use Revive Friends. Flip Tails, of course, great. Evolve into Kabutops.
How many Kabutops do you have?
Play Ace Trainer.
Oh my goodness, this guy. Skill diff. Hold on.
Play Brooklet Hill.
Brooklet Hill. What does this Kabutops do?
Use Brooklet Hill to bench Squirtle, because why not?
Is that actually just straight up trainer lock?
So this is a Gen 4 card, so it is item lock.
Okay, so item lock. Whatever, I don't care then.
Play Luxury Ball. What do I want from the Luxury Ball? Tough decision. Oh, grab Holland's Magneton.
What the hell? How are we playing Holland's Magneton?
Dive Ball. Caracosta.
Caracosta.
Evolve into Caracosta.
And I no longer can retreat.
What? Since when?
I can't retreat with the close down.
Yeah, okay, sure. I'll pass. Yeah, man. This is fucked, man. This is fucked.
I have no items. Play Judge.
Okay.
And then I'll use Cloud Dark.
Ah, this is so fucked, bro. You got like the best card out from my deck.
I will very much so get rid of that twins there.
Oh my lord.
No, thank you.
Push Squirtle. Draw. Use Brooklet Hill to bench Ditto. What does his attack do from this guy? Yeah, that's not gonna be enough.
Spiral Drain. Come on, that's big damage.
Play Guzman Hala, discarding Stone Energy and Jet Energy. To get...
Dang, he's going all in.
Wash Energy.
Water.
Research Lab.
Also Research
Lab. And Fluffy Berry. Actually, do I want Fluffy Berry? No. I want Memory Capsule instead.
Memory Capsule.
Memory Capsule, Wash Energy, Research Lab.
I really know you want to do stuff with that Tortuga, but I have,
Countercatcher
re-items
Hoopa.
my discard.
Countercatcher to Hoopa, please.
The Hoopa. The Hoopa.
And then I'll use Pokemon Research Lab to bench Udo.
Mudo.
And Anorith.
Anorith. And I'll draw for turn. Play Moonlight Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
The bunker. Also Research Lab. I don't want to be dealing with that shenanigans.
Valid.
I'll play a Luxury Ball.
I love how I have 0 cards in hand.
Claydol. Evolve into Claydol.
Damn, bro. Claydol so broken.
Okay. Use Claydol. Cards bottom of my deck.
You know, I would love to see how my deck would perform in a 4-player pod.
I think you get targeted because it's just kind of annoying. I'll play Janine.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll... Wait, this only attaches to Dark Pokemon. God damn it. Okay. Well, why don't go on him? Why don't go on him?
Yeah.
Successfully stall me for a turn. I'll attach for turn on the Hoop EX, and I will pass.
Draw for turn. And I'll pass.
Well played, well played.
It's your turn again.
Nice. I'll draw for turn.
Like, listen, if I top deck a Pokemon that I can't do anything with, it's just... I can't do anything.
Attach for turn to Hoopa.
I have, like, no onboard abilities to pop any further. I could do, like, the Ditto to swap the Ditto, but I could do that.
Push my Mega Absol.
Mm-hmm.
And I will use Dark.
Cool. You can discard the Shieldon out of my hands.
Yeah, get that out of here. You don't like Shieldon around here.
Push Ditto. Raw. Handiwork is my top deck.
It's handiwork. Oh no.
Oh, now I flip double heads. Awesome.
Discard 4 cards. 4 cards?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I don't care.
Alright.
Alright, what you gonna do?
Gonna pass.
Pass. Yeah, I wanna draw for turn. Play Guzma and Hala.
Mm-hmm.
Get Giant Stone. And I'll play Giant Stone.
Okay.
Discarding
So I'm bench locked.
And you. Yeah, none of your shenanigans over there. And then I'll toggle power.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very fair and balanced. And definitely not the best Pokemon, best draw Pokemon like ever.
At least it helps that it helps that it's in fighting, which is like kind of mediocre.
And then I'll use Claw of Darkness. Discard nothing.
Cool. Push Anrif. And
You got
draw.
a stadium bump over there?
I mean, I'm gonna have to play this card if I want to or not.
Well, you could just let me discard it. Good rod.
Cool, I can get a Pokemon back on top of my deck.
Nice, you can get Kabutops.
Do I want that? Or do I want Amistar V?
Good question.
There we go.
Kabutops.
And I'll
Get Kabutops.
Bass.
Draw for turn. Nice. I'll use that. Discard Canceling Clone and fail it on purpose. Gonna use Cosmic Power. That's the top of the deck, not the bottom. And then we'll draw 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like Guzma to gust your Kabutops.
My Kabuto, you mean?
To push my Absol back up, and then I will knock out your Kabuto.
Alright. Push Anarif. And draw pass.
Draw pass. I'll draw for turn. I'll use Cosmic Power. Draw 2. Nice. Use Trainer's Mail.
Mm-hmm.
Get Max Elixir. Use Max Elixir.
Mm-hmm.
That is the wrong thing. 6. Get energy. Attach it to him.
Wait, what are Hoopa's attacks even?
200 damage, can't attack next turn, and 50 for each of all your on all my opponent's Pokemon.
Okay. Thank you for the information.
I'll Field Blower because it's not hurting you at all anymore. And I will Claw of Darkness to discard your card.
Hey, thank you for not field blowering my memory capsule. I appreciate it.
Oh. Whatever.
Play Nissa.
I'll let you play the game.
To recover these 4 Pokemon.
If I had remembered it was there, I definitely would have gotten rid of it, by the way.
Yeah, of course. Okay, let me count the items in your discard pile. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Ancient Seaweed to do 330 damage to your Mega Absol for 3 prizes.
There you go. Completely forgot it was there, but I'll let you play the game.
Thank you.
Turn.
I think this is like the only attacker in the deck, actually. I think turn 2 guy's like the only Pokemon that can actually do decent damage.
Bottom of the deck to bottom of the deck. Draw 3.
Maybe I should put a Regigigas in this deck. Maybe I should put a Regigigas in this deck.
Table.
White table, you can do discard immediately. It doesn't really matter.
Oh. Now we use Rescue Stretcher.
Yep.
Evolve in a Darkrai V-Star. I will toggle my V-Star power. First time I ever got to use that, which is kind of funny.
A V-Star power in general, or?
Just got to use the V-Star power of this game.
Valid.
Well, this like whole set. I'll get Professor's letter, as well as a Pokeball. Which one do I have in here? Quick Ball.
Okay.
I'll use Quick Ball to discard Darkrai GX and go get Pokemon. I'll get Darkrai EX. Use Professor's letter. Get energy. Attach return with energy. I'll put Darkrai GX on my bench and attach energy to him, just for fun. And then I will use Bandit's Fist to knock out your
Okay.
Take a prize card.
I'll push Ditto and draw for turn. Play Timer Ball for one evolution Pokemon.
Why is he? What does Timer Ball get you?
Fossils.
To evolve from what?
Yeah, that's a issue I'm working out.
He's working on that. He's working on. That's getting worked on.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Play Cynthia and Caitlin, discarding Buddy Buddy Poffin to recover a supporter and draw 3 cards. Supporter I will recover is Twins, and I'll draw 3 cards. Play Professor's Letter.
This is next turn is gonna be your big turn.
I have no basic energy in deck. Are they literally all priced? That's. Do I even run basic energy? I don't think I run basic energy actually. Hold on.
And your deck has got quite the amount of great cards in it.
I mean, they're good cards, just not in this deck. Play Pokemon Retriever, shuffle back Kabutops, Tortuga, and Caracosta into the deck. And I'll play Palpat, shuffle Cynthia and Caitlin and Arven back into the deck. And I will pass.
And I'll draw for turn.
It's kind of funny that this Hoopa can't KO this Ditto.
And that is the game right there. I'll play Karina.
Oh, Prime Catcher. Yeah. Okay.
Prime Catcher.
Bye-bye.
Prime.
Bye-bye. There's some cards that I wanted to show still. Because there's a lot of cool cards. I mean, like, you're aware of this Amistar, right?
Yeah.
And you're aware...
One out,
You're also aware of this Kabutops, right?
Yeah, Kabutops. That's the supporter lock, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's also this Armaldo that's also supporter locks.
Wow.
But it locks both players.
Okay, it's not very good though.
I also run this Aerodactyl, and this Aerodactyl, you saw this one briefly. But this is like the prehistoric memory one is kind of like a replacement for memory energy.
Yep.
Is there any other? Well, you never saw this Kabuto, which I really like.
Aerodactyl cannot be optimal though. That lets me use my attacks as well.
Yeah, but like if I run one memory capsule, no memory energy, and
well, you could run Relicanth, right?
I can run Relicanth, but that's another basic.
Who's your commander?
It's Regigigas. X.
So you don't even have baby Reggie.
No,
anyway.
no, I do not. This could have also been Palisand DX, or No, the other one that's water fighting metal, I forgot. The Flygon EX. Could have also been that, I guess.
Okay.
I also have this Caracosta, which I guess it makes sense. I have this Tortuga for anti-deck out for myself.
I don't think you ever got to see that guy.
I have seen Toxicity. You've discarded it once.
Okay.
Um,
I don't think this guy ever came out, but you know.
I mean that's a classic.
Or any of these fellas.
Is there any other card that's like really cool that I never played? I guess this one.
So I think I'm gonna cut these two because I decided to cut a Pong because he wasn't really doing anything. He was kind of just wasting deck space because Absol is freaking broken as hell. The card is no fun to play against.
I guess these are the cards that are like not obvious that I also included in the deck.
Steven's Resolve, hell yeah.
I love Steven's Resolve. Especially in control decks, but also Big Air Balloon. I thought this was Big Brain.
Well, you do play on a lot of stage 2s, that makes sense.
There's also stuff here like, of course, Skyfields. But there's also things here like Surprise Time Machine makes sense here, right? Bow Hand Extension makes sense here.
I think this is a pretty solid deck I made.
I think I made a pretty solid 98 cards. If I had to change 2 cards, it would be Buddy Buddy Boffin and Professor's Letter. Or I would add more basic energies, or I would cut Professor's Letter for something else.
I think just Absol being overpowered is helping my deck a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Definitely not better than Palkia, but it's pretty good.
It's pretty good, yeah. I'm surprised I managed to knock it out at some point.
Well, it's also because I just, you know, forgot that you had memory capsule.
Yeah. True. But I do like that Aerodactyl, that prehistoric memory one. Because it's like an entire Pokemon. And just because like the ancient seaweed is so strong, especially with potentially like the Caracosta on top of it that walls special energy mons.
Really good for this game, but because items are just so everywhere, even more than like every other game mode.
Yeah. I was also thinking of maybe making a Trashalanche deck, but
I think I can probably end up cutting quite a bit out of my deck and make it much more focused on.
Yeah, you can definitely cut the Zigzagoon and Hawlucha, etc.
I already cut those. Zigzagoon and Hawlucha, they're gone. I can probably cut Toxicity, he's not doing anything. And probably cut Moltres and Darkrai, the 2 prizers. They didn't do anything.
That's because they weren't relevant this time, though. Redundancy is also nice.
I feel like I can cut one of them. Bench space is just all over the place right now.
Yeah, I understand. Anyway, for those watching the stream, this is the entire deck. Let's actually edit this deck. Let's cut the Puffin and the letter and add 2 other cards. Alright. Bet. I'll also close Discord for a second. So what 2 other cards can we add to the deck now that Puffin is gone? And letter. I guess Hilda is like not a bad option. I could consider Hilda. It's like not a terrible option. Since I have so many special energies. And what else do we want? Is there another way to cheat fossils in play? Or actually, is there maybe a Tortuga that's... Yeah, this is a Tortuga from unidentified fossil, but this is my anti-deck out Tortuga, so maybe not that one. I've noticed that I would prefer another Ammonite potentially. If I could get this in here, probably over one of the other Ammonites. This can cheat things into play, and this evolves itself. I'll cut this Ammonite. It's really funny. It looks so funny with the drag off. But it's so tech, but it feels so bad to run, if you know what I mean. Like, this Ammonite feels so tech. I would love to include this. I could go tree Ammonite probably, because the Amistars are like really good. I could consider adding Fan Rotom as the last Pokemon, or as the last card of the deck, because well, if I do Fan Rotom can grab me Ditto, but then I still need to retreat out, so I need either Jet or Fluffy Berry or Floatstone for that. Or Guzma. So Fan Rotom is a little awkward. And like we said, Relicanth is also a little awkward. Yeah, what else could we add to this deck to make it good? Maybe like a Petrol? I feel like we need to have more ways to put fossils in play. Like Underground Lake kind of does that, right? Yeah, Underground Lake does that. It's an Ammonite or Kabuto from discard onto bench. So we can go Underground Lake. Or do I want Holon Fossil? Holon Fossils... Fossil and good don't really happen. Holon Fossil is an interesting one. Because this is like Fossil Ag, but if you flip heads, you search your deck for one of those fossil guys and put it onto the bench. But if it's still, you put one from your hands onto the bench. That's why it's kind of like worse than Fossil Egg, because you don't really have agency over which way it's happening. But I think I like Underground Lake more because it's an Ammonite or Kabuto from discard. Fossil Excavation Kit is not gonna work with all this. And I'm pretty sure there's no way to cheat Tier 2 guy in play. No. Well, there is with Copper Fossil, but like, we ain't doing that. I can cut another card to keep these two, but I'll leave Holland's Fossil out of this deck. We can go 6 stadiums, that's fine. 6 stadiums is fine. Honestly, Brooklet Hill didn't really do too much for me either. Especially since we're going for that guaranteed turn 1, so I can go for Holland Fossil. There we go. Yeah. Was there another thing that I wanted to change, maybe? Like the Anorith Armaldo felt fairly clunky. I feel like the Bastiodon is a necessary evil, unfortunately. I could add like the Metagross that cheats itself in play. That would be funny. The emergency entry one. But I don't think there's a single way I can abuse this. Unfortunately. I could consider adding a baby Regigigas. But that would mean that I want a purpose for using sacrifice, and I don't think I have that. I don't have basic energies. I mean, the Anorith is nice because you can cheat. You can cheat it in play with the Holland Fossil and a Fossil Egg. Not the fossil egg, actually. With the Holland fossil and the underground lake. No, also not underground lake. Strange cave, that's what it was. There's a lot of ways you can cheat the fossils into play, actually. Is there another way you can cheat Pokemon into play? I could go for Archie's Ace in the Hole as an extra card. I don't know how consistent that is, but... Or did we ban Archie's Ace in the Hole? Hold on. Let me check. I forgot if we banned Archie's Ace in the Hole or not. We did ban Archie's Ace in the Hole, okay. Then I think I'm happy with the 100 we have here. I mean, ideally we have the... Ideally we have like more unidentified fossil Pokemon here. Is there an unidentified fossil Aerodactyl that's maybe any good? It's only this one, but this one's ass, so we're not doing that one. This is unidentified fossil as well, but this is also ass. I mean, it's a free retreater that makes opponents' basic attacks cost 1 more. But we can't cheat this in play with Fossil Egg or Strange Cave. We can cheat it in play with Research Lab, which is really funny. I'm also not sure if Devolution Ray is to play here. I think I'm happy with how the deck functions. Alright. Yeah. Thanks everyone so much for watching. I'll try to be back next Tuesday with another stream. No guarantee on that though, unfortunately, because I am a little bit busy next week because I'm going back to school next week, to college. I'll try to make an expanded deck happen. Keep your eyes peeled for Strategic's YouTube channel because we're working on a big project together. This is why I said my hands are kind of tied and I'm a little bit busy. So keep your eyes peeled for his channel. It's going to be a pretty cool video coming up somewhat soon. I would say later this month is probably the time span that we're expecting this to release. Before the release of Ascended Heroes. Before the release of Ascended Heroes for sure. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. So let's move to this screen and see who is live at the moment. I'll take a quick gander here. Let's see. Is there anyone cool that we want to rate? We can always raid into RV there yet, for sure. This is guaranteed chaos, which I'm kind of here for. Yeah, let's go raid into Spoof. Thanks everyone so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time around. I'll try to keep the Discord updated if I can. So please consider... Oh my god, I can't type. Please consider joining the Discord server. Would mean a lot to me. Anyway, thanks everyone so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye!